muting for a little bit? Okay, thanks so much. So everyone, there's a poll here. Hopefully you've seen it because everyone else is filling it out. These are just the main topics we thought we could cover tonight. And so if you take a minute here and just click on things, we'll kind of try and craft things based on what people are most interested in. I see a lot of people have a strong interest in Marcus's personal favorite, which is bottom brackets and head tube angles. But right now it seems like we've got a lot of how to ride on the snow, where to ride, how to choose my fat bike. Okay, if everyone can vote here, I'm just gonna close it in another like 5 seconds. Okay, the excitement is overwhelming. So it looks like how to ride on the snow is our clear winner.
Excellent.
With where to ride being second, and then clothes to wear, and then choose my fat bike, and then world's best hot toddy recipe, which I think is actually should be rated higher, but okay. With that, I'll go back to our presentation really quick. And you can see, look at this, it's already lined up more or less in the way that fit what you guys thought your interest would be. And I thought this might be a great chance, Rebecca, for you to introduce yourself and tell us kind of like what is fat biking for you.
Sure. So, hey, everybody, I'm Rebecca Shannon. This is my husband, David. The dog's on the couch. And I love bikes and any reason to ride bikes in all seasons. So fat bikes, number one, no I-70. And I can go by myself and not die in an avalanche. I can bring my dog. I don't know. It's just bikes, snow, friends. What else do you want? It's pretty awesome. Sometimes it's cold. It's mostly always sweaty. There's a lot of hiking involved, but really it's a lot of fun. And if you haven't done it yet, you should. And if you've already doing it, then that's why you're here, because you know it's fun. And I think that's it.
Awesome. And so I'll just reintroduce myself. My name is KBK, and I have been fat biking since I think 2012, which doesn't really make me like the grandpa of fat biking, but I'm definitely like the crazy old uncle of fat biking. When I first got a fat bike, I had to mail order it, and I had no idea. I just was like, I don't know, maybe this could be fun. And it was ridiculously stupid and silly. And within a couple of years, I had kind of gotten a group of friends together and we all started riding. Fat biking for me, I think it started as like the yin to the yang of going to ski resorts, where the ski resorts, there was this amazing rush of going downhill on the slopes, and you didn't have to work that hard because you were on a lift, but then there was all the crowds and the $15 hot chocolates and tacos. And fat biking was my chance to go out with my friends into the woods and experience like real nature and real quiet. I'll also be totally honest. I'm a pretty good downhill skier. I am the world's worst cross country skier. So when I would go someplace like Brainerd Lake and try and cross country ski, I felt like it was taking my life into my hands, or at least my ACLs, every single time I went. But when I got on a fat bike, I realized that a lot of the skills that I had built from cycling could translate pretty well right into riding on the snow. And like Rebecca was saying, it's really hot, sweaty exercise, but it's also just this amazing, tranquil experience so much of the time. I think some of the most peaceful, quiet times I've ever had have been on a night fat bike ride. So I should also add one more thing. This isn't the first time I've done a Fatbikeology, like a seminar on this. I looked, and my friends and I did this like in front of a studio audience, if you will, live, but we did it in 2015. And back then we thought we had like learned so much. We were ready to tell everyone all these great stories about how to do this. And things have changed so much in the last 5 years that I look back on that and like, oh, wow, we had some things right, but things have changed so much, we needed to learn. So I think tonight, as we're gonna go forward, think of this as a great time for a discussion where you might know things that I don't know, that Rebecca doesn't know, that no one else knows, that's going to be invaluable. So please feel free to ask questions or pipe in and say, actually, I know a better thing, because you probably do. And with that, I thought I would just show a few pictures to sort of capture the feelings that I've had from fat biking, and a couple short videos, and then we'll get into this. So when I think about fat biking, this is one of the big things that I really connect with. This is Brainerd Lake, out on the ice on a perfectly still, windless sunset, with my friends. Uh, but this is also fat biking, where if you notice, like you're always going to be falling over. Everyone is smiling like crazy and laughing because it's like being 8 years old again, where you can ride and it's goofy and silly, and you can hit things other than snow, but there's a lot of snow to land on out there. And when you land on the snow, it's usually pretty silly. Um, there's definitely times, like on the left, where one of our BMA members sent this, and I was like, "Wow, that's some serious air for a fat bike." And then there's times like on the right with my friend Chris Eckelmeyer, who's like, "Hey, it's going to be riding great," and we ended up pushing a bike up a hill through 8 inches of powder for 2 miles. Um, and those things happen. And part of the whole experience for me is being Zen, that mostly you aim for what's on the left, and sometimes you end up with what's on the right, and you just got to be okay with it. It's also a chance to experience places you probably have been in a completely new landscape. This is Hartman Rocks, right? And there's not a rock to be found any place. It's just this amazing single track line through the middle of the semi-desert. Um, Completely different experience than what you'd have in the summer. And then there's also sort of the agony and thrill of being out in inclement weather. I'm from California, and if someone told me I would be in 4-degree weather with a 20-mile-an-hour constant wind and a snowstorm, I would have thought they were insane. And yet here's a picture of me doing that. You'll notice I am trying to get back on my bike and get away as fast as I can. The person taking the photo is like, "Hey, turn around, get a photo. It's cool." I'm like, "No, no, no. I am going down this hill. I'm getting back to the car. I need my beer."
You're welcome.
Um,
It's a great picture, by the way.
yeah. Here's what I think, like, as good as fat biking could get. This is 20 miles an hour on a 1 foot wide single track in a snowstorm. Uh, and there's also things where, like, oh, look, an 8-inch drop, and suddenly it's a whole level of adventure you never thought before. On a normal bike, you'd say, "Oh, that's easy," and now you're thinking, "I don't want to die." And then one thing that's really cool about fat biking is that because it's snow, we do have a bit of leeway where you can work on using your rear brake to skid, which is like fun in an 8-year-old way. And then you can work on your gymnastic skills to do the splits, and then your groin injury skills. Here's another, this is Apex Park. And this is when snow conditions are bad, when you ride downhill, and downhill is almost impossible. And then I have some crash reel here. Just riding along, decided to lay it down. Oh, this is jumping bikes down by South Boulder Rec Cen on a slope kids set up jumps on. And then there's also, we do a lot of trail stewardship in the winter because the trees all fall over in the wind. So you'll inevitably be doing a lot of sawing. And then sometimes you're just going to stand around watching people saw. That's hard exercise too. And then here's Wendy, who's demonstrating how good the trails can be packed, and then her innovative bridge grooming technique that she's doing there to pack down the bridge to keep people from falling off the sides. And that's a big part of what we end up doing. And I hope we get to talk about a bit tonight is the sort of etiquette of managing our trails in the winter, because they take a different kind of attention. But also, I mean, Rebecca, this is a picture you sent in, but I think this is probably the single biggest thing I find is that you end up with like amazing friends having these truly unique experiences. You people, you look like everyone there, you hate them. Right? So
Definitely.
and yeah, so the thing I noticed, as I said, is like everyone seems to smile just a lot. And I think that is something that translate when you finally get this dial in and you get past all of the falling all of the time and you're only falling some of the time. It just is I mean, it's something that like I find deeply giddy, like being an 8-year-old. And with that, I figure we could just open this up for kind of a semi-structured discussion about what fat biking is based on what our poll was. And I'm going to end the slideshow because that's all there was, and we can go from there.
So I wish I had a photo of it or a video of it, but one of my favorite fat biking experiences was David and I live in Gun Barrel. We have a regular Wednesday night crew. And for whatever reason, we decided we didn't want to go up to the peak to peak. So our friends all rode their fat bikes to our house. We rode our fat bikes together to Niwot. We ordered pizza from Abo's and we told them to deliver it back to our house. And then we raced the pizza delivery back to our house. And he remembers it. The guy from no, it was Lefties. It was Lefties. Sorry, Lefties. He remembers it. So we're on tap to do it again this year. So no proof,
That's
but
awesome.
Great memory. Yeah.
And I'll say, just to add to it, there's been several times when the snow's so bad in the mountains and it's like 0 degrees. And my friends we've ridden from pub to pub. And
Nice.
and you show up on a bike stripping off 40 layers of clothes and you end up with either free or discounted beers really fast because they're like, you guys are just insane, come on in. So anyway, Rebecca, do you think, I guess we should just kind of start rolling on the topics that were here?
Sure.
Do you want to just open it up?
But I don't have the list of
guess,
topics.
Okay, well, the biggest one that everyone was talking, the like number one and number two things were how to ride on the snow.
Yep.
And what kind of bike do you look for in a fat bike?
Cool. So, okay, how do you ride on the snow? Slowly. It takes balance. You have to have patience with yourself. And if you're better than the people who are behind you, you should have a warm jacket for when you're waiting for them. How else do you ride on snow? You sit on your back, you put a lot of weight on the back wheel because all the traction comes from the back. So if you're more of a real mountain biker and you think you got to be all up in the front, that's not going to work.
Well, one of my big concepts is that you can only ride when it's packed.
Right.
And we'll get to it a little bit, but part of etiquette is packing, right? So you don't really actually should ever expect to go out and ride your fat bike in 10 inches of fresh.
That's a skiing day.
That's a ski day. So it should be a snowshoe packed trail. And then it's a lot like riding your regular mountain bike on dirt, except you're just pretty much not really in control most of the time.
That's what he says. I don't know. I think I'm in control. But
we ride a little different.
Yes.
Here's a quick question. Do you wear clip shoes or not?
I tried, but
half and half in our crew.
Yeah. We have some folks who are committed, and then I would say probably 65% of us are no way, because your feet freeze and then the clips get all full of snow and you're going to be walking half the time anyway. So you might as well wear something warm and comfortable.
Yeah, I think one thing that's kind of an interesting point, there's not a lot of really, really heavyweight footwear that's clipless. There's a few options out there, but not many. My feet are terminally cold, and I actually would love to, if anyone's got ideas about keeping your feet warm, I'd love to know, because that's my lifelong struggle.
I have a pair of hiking boots that I wear fat biking that are part of their like insulated line.
Yep.
So they're insulated and waterproof, and they're work fantastic.
I think Aaron
Yeah.
and David both use Solomon hiking boots that are insulated.
Deep
So,
winter
yeah.
insulated hiking boots. Yeah.
and I wear regular hiking boots with toe warmers.
Always have gaiters. Protect your shoes and your legs from getting snow down. And that's a lot of the heat retention in your feet.
Kevin,
So
anything
I think,
more? Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Like
go
the
ahead.
actual how
No,
to ride on snow. I mean,
yeah. So I think
you just gotta do it.
one thing I think that's like, I'd say if you want to get out and do this, the first thing I'd say, and we can talk about this a little bit more too, is that knowing what trails are well packed on a given day is really helpful. Because if a trail is in really good packed shape, it's pretty easy to ride with a fat bike.
Yeah.
If the trail is kind of slippery or a little icy or there's fresh snow on top of it, it rapidly goes from, hey, this is easy, I'm having like it's easier than normal mountain biking because there's not rocks or anything, to I am afraid that I can't pedal more than 10 feet. And I know so many people who've tried fat biking and they went out and just were like, well, it's, whatever day of the week, let me grab a bike, I'll go give it a try. And they tried it and they're like, this is miserable. Why does anyone ever do this? And it's mostly because like they were on a trail that had poor snow conditions. When Wendy chimed in on a text, and she mentioned something that I think is also really important. Like tire pressure is incredibly important. I ride with one of these guys. It's a low pressure tire gauge. Most of the people I know have one of these someplace, so they kind of know what their tire pressure is. And in general, I start out a ride at about 5.5 or 6 pounds of pressure, and then I will let air out if it's bad. I know some people run like a bit more, like 7 or 8 pounds, but if you're running 10 or 11 pounds of tire pressure, unless the conditions are just absolutely amazing, you're just going to be digging a hole in the snow. And sometimes a 1/2 pound of tire pressure can make a huge difference, where you're like, I can't ride, and you let a little bit of air out and you're like, oh no, this is fine now. In my group of friends, we sort of have a rule of thumb. When the snow conditions start getting a little bit marginal, you can look at your rear tire, and with your body weight on it, you should see wrinkles in the tire on the sidewall.
Yeah.
That's how low the pressure should be. And we'll say, do you have 1 wrinkle? That's the single wrinkle. Or 2, that's the double buckle. And the double buckle for me is at about 3/4 of a pound. That's where I get 2 wrinkles in the side of my tire. And I'll definitely ride lower than that if I have to. That's when the snow has been coming down during my ride and I'm running out of traction. But that makes a huge difference for me. And I think what Rebecca said about keeping your weight back, I think that's a really big help. I think of my front wheel as sort of like a rudder that's like, I'm kind of hoping that when I turn the wheel, it goes that way. The rear wheel is the thing that actually I'm counting on for my traction.
So as far as tire life, we've been riding really our tires at these kinds of pressures for 5 years now. And the sidewalls are showing a little bit of that little stripy, stretch marks kind of, but the treads they're brand new. I mean, the tread doesn't wear at all. It's the sidewalls that I think are going to go first, because we're riding with the double buckle and they stretch. But
yeah,
5 years, yeah, no worries.
I think you've gotten your money's worth.
Yeah, and that does bring up something I know some people asked about how to choose a bike. I guess we're kind of dancing all around here, and I feel a little bit to blame for that. My cat's lying on top of my notes, so I don't have an exact vision of it. But for those of you who asked, fat bikes. So I'll be totally honest. This year, fat bikes, it's crazy. You'll be lucky to find one. The sales of them started early this season, and with all the COVID stuff and all the supply chain stuff, you kind of need to be like, this bicycle can sort of fit me, I will buy it. And enjoy this season, and then make a call next year if you want to upgrade or change. But the one thing I would say, based on what everyone's been talking about so far, tires are really important. And you really do, I think in the world of fat biking, we consider it above a 3.8 size tire is usually that's fat, and below that, that's plus size or whatever. And around here, most of the people I know are above 4, 4.5,
4.5 to
4.8.
5.
We're running, we're running really big tires, and we're looking for tread on the tires. The treads can be much taller than on a normal mountain bike because the snow just doesn't wear them out very fast. But snow doesn't have the best traction. So the other side of that is that if you find a bike and it's got really nice new tires on it, you're looking at $260 worth of additional value on a used bike because it has good tires. Because the bike tires are 100 and something bucks a pop.
So really what that means is if you have a wife or a girlfriend that you want to buy a bike for, that somebody bought one for 2 or 3 years ago and she never picked it up, you're in luck this year. But if you're a 6-foot guy, good luck. You're going to have to spend some money.
Yeah. And there's I did call around to all the shops in the county just to find out who's got what. Most of them kind of laughed. So I think they're realizing that there's a pretty low supply. University Bikes has a couple right now. Full Cycle has a couple. I forget, there might be a couple of other ones, but it's really like hit or miss. So if you're interested in buying a new bike, I would definitely just start picking up the phone and calling all around the state and see if anyone's got one. Craigslist, they cycle through. And if you're somehow affiliated with BMA officially, you feel free to reach out to me through BMA channels. I think there's some way that we can get that set up, and I'm happy to say, in the all the spare time that I have in my life, be like, okay, that bike's good. No, not that one. Go check this one out. Whatever, if that's something that helps.
Hey, so
as best I can.
Jump on chat real quick. So somebody was asking about riding a regular bike. You're not going to be able to ride that regular bike on snow, regardless of the tire pressure. The 3.8 and up, the 4.5, 5-inch tires are really indispensable. I've got a Krampus that's a 29 by 3, and I could ride that in lots of places, but really the snow around here is powdery. It's soft. You'll sink right through it. You'll cut right down to the dirt. So really, you're going to be riding on dirt. So if you want to worry about tire pressure, you need to be able to ride dirt. You're going to be near the dirt anyway. Don't ride on snow. To move on down, then studs. Studs are useful, and if you use your fat bike for commuting on the Lobo Trail, across the roads around here, if you're actually around town, maybe, yes. But for where we go, this is Colorado Power. There's no ice, or if there is ice,
it's a pretty short section.
It's a short section, and I usually try to get light over it anyway and float it and not really come in contact with the ice. Be very careful, but no studs needed.
And if you put it in perspective, right, like you're going to hop on a bike that's 35 pounds. If you buy studded tires, it's going to work its way to 40 pounds real quick. So that's a huge weight penalty you're going to have for like a little bit of benefit at that one spot here and there. And to kind of build on the skinny tires thing, last weekend I was actually riding at Peaceful Valley, which is up off the peak to peak. And there were 2 people, there's a group of 3. One of them had a fat bike and 2 had mountain bikes, and the 2 had mountain bikes. 2 things happened. They made it about a mile and like gave up. And in that mile, they turned the trail into absolute hamburger. What was a pretty well packed trail that snowshoers and skiers and everyone was using was just like a chewed up mess. Because they just carved right through it, and they were swerving all over because they had no traction. And that kind of gets a little bit to what I would like to talk about for a sec, is that etiquette's a little bit different for fat biking. Even though we're kind of used to, if you're going uphill, you have the right of way. If a skier is coming downhill, or for that matter, even a fat biker is coming down fast, it's just not really possible to stop. And so you could say, hey, I have the right of way, and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to hit you anyway because I can't stop. So etiquette's a little different that way. Also, even though we've been doing this for a while, we're still kind of the new kids on the block, and people get angry and they complain to rangers when we're jerks. But the last thing is that the trails are, I mean, you're not going to ruin a trail, but if you're post holing a lot, if you're riding through snow that's really deep and soft, if you're riding on a bike with regular tires, you end up causing enough sort of damage to the snow that other people who want to ride or ski or something are going to be upset. And one of the things that I get incredibly frustrated with is I'll be riding down a really well-packed trail and someone will inevitably have been walking without any snowshoes and post holing 8 inches deep into it. And they think that's kind of cool, but 8-inch deep post holes cause the fat bike to just sink in and bounce all over the place, because it's kind of like riding 2 beach balls. That's what those tires are like. And so they hit something and they just boing. And then the ruts get made deeper and deeper as people use it more. So stuff like that is just really important to kind of bear in mind if you're going to go out and play there.
So I'll chime in with that. Speaking of etiquette, something David and I try to do is that when there is fresh snow, you know, more than 3 or 4 inches, we will go out with our snowshoes or our cross-country skis and help pack down the trails. And then also it gives you that chance to kind of be in the other person's footsteps. You know, I think BMA did that a couple of years ago. They had bikers on horseback and trail runners on bikes and whatnot. And it was really kind of neat just to get people to be in the other person's shoes, even if it's only for a couple hours. And I think all of us, whatever sport is our favorite sport, we should try to remember that other people have a different favorite sport and we all want to have fun when we're out there. So let's be as nice as possible, especially in 2020, which is almost over, thank God. But still, we should just kind of pay that forward and just try to be good stewards of the trail for however we're using it.
And to address something Kevin said, we are the new kids on the block, right? There are a lot of old retirees out there on cross-country skis that have had these trails to themselves for the last century. And all of a sudden we show up en masse and there's the trailheads are absolutely packed and people out riding. It's really good to be nice, show them a smile, say, hey, how you doing? It's a beautiful day out, right? It's etiquette summer. It's really etiquette in the winter.
And people often they're like, wow, that looks like fun. And since you've stopped anyway, you might as well tell them either where you rented the bike, where you bought the bike, how much fun you're having, how much exercise it is. I mean, people are really curious. They look at you and you're like, is that a motorcycle? No, I actually pedaled all the way up this hill. Because fat bikes are still a little bit new. Oh my God, we passed a family at Mud Lake and they were like, whoa, that's legit. And I was like, okay, but it was fun. They were quite surprised to see us on these giant tires.
The one thing to add to it is over the last 3-4 years, I've definitely noticed the increase in traffic. The more people that are out there, the better the trail conditions are. The more people are packing, the more people that are out there, either snowshoers or skiing, or just the people that are riding. The trails are getting to be in better condition, all the way from West Mag to Sourdough to Peaceful Valley, Camp Dick.
Not West Mag, too many snowdrifts.
Every now and then. It's true. It's windy out there in West Mag. But all along peak to peak, the trails are getting so much more activity that they're really becoming better to ride. They're really, you can go out, pay attention to the news, check the website, but still, more frequently, you can have really good trails for a long time.
Should we go through favorite places to ride, starting with up close, assuming most of us live down here on the flats? Okay, yeah. I'm going to say yes. So
yes, please.
So the Lobo is perfectly legitimate to ride on. Boulder Valley Ranch, Eagle Sage, Marshall Mesa. The great thing about Flatirons Vista is it smooths out all those damn rocks. They are so bumpy in the summer. You only need 2 inches of snow and it is super fun. So you can ride down here and then working your way west. We like Sourdough from either end. South St. Vrain, we've shuttled the whole thing. That's super fun. Am I getting the names right? I don't do names very well. We try West Mag every year and we have still not figured it out. So if somebody has figured out how to ride at West Mag and not spend the entire time.
Happy Jack.
Yes, Happy Jack. We love Happy Jack.
Happy Jack's awesome. They grew it.
Vitasso is too far south for us, Wendy. But yes, if you live down in Boulder, totally good place to ride.
Like the Boulder County trails So that's like Heil, Hall, Batasso. Those are really like, the snow will come and it has to be a good snow. It'll get packed and then it'll be amazing for a day. And then
Yep.
the next day it becomes like icy mud bog.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that like one of the things that I've learned, and I'm not a huge social media person, but one of the things I really do depend on is this online group on Facebook called Front Range Fatties. And they post conditions really regularly. You can get some of that through Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance as well. We try to keep up on that. But Front Range Fatties is really on the ball about, hey, I just rode Batasso. It's great. It's going to be good until about 5 o'clock today because it's starting to melt out. Don't go there tomorrow or whatever. And I think that the stuff that's really closer can be really fun. It's usually really silly because the conditions are never amazingly packed. It's usually one of those like, wow, this is kind of fun for a day. We're going to laugh a lot. And as you get up to the peak to peak highway, at least around here, is what I find the really consistently good riding is. And that would be Brainerd Lake, which also can be kind of crowded. But the Waldrop Trail, if you're familiar with that, is a great way to ride from the winter parking lot out to the lake. It's usually, for most of the winter, it's usually pretty darn rideable. And then there's an area a few miles to the north of Buchanan Pass called Peaceful Valley. It's also Camp Dick Campground. And there's trails in there that are also really amazing. And Peaceful Valley, given the name, actually is a place that's great to escape wind. So if it's a really windy, miserable day, a lot of the time Peaceful Valley will be riding spectacularly. And people will talk about that a lot on Front Range Fatties as sort of a go-to. And Mud Lake, you've just heard, we've talked about it a bunch already. Mud Lake is an amazing place for a beginner ride. It's an amazing place for a not beginner ride too. Like it's a fun place to go and goof around, but the trails are really well packed. It's really easy to access.
It's butt.
Yeah.
What a great cat.
Yeah, no, there's my cat. Thankfully, he's just licking his tail right now. I'm sure he'll go to his butt soon.
It's enormous.
Yeah, he's a Maine Coon cat, so he's used to the snow. Someone asked, are Jeep trails good for fat biking, Switzerland, Coney Flats, etc.? So
I haven't done Switzerland. I don't know if that gets enough traffic.
Yeah, Switzerland I tried once, and I don't know if that's like the rule of the or the exception, but it was horrible. It was really drifty in places, and then it was rideable in others, but not really fun. I don't see anyone ever talking about it. Coney, on the other hand, Coney Flats Road does get really well packed in the winter. It can be bad, but mostly it's really good. And there's actually a loop you can do where you leave from that Peaceful Valley area I was talking about, ride up to Beaver Reservoir Road, and then ride on Coney Flats Road and go out and do a bunch of fun stuff on that Jeep road. So it gets skied a lot, so it tends to be in pretty good shape.
Somebody mentioned Happy Jack up in Laramie, Wyoming. We've ridden there a bunch. Totally fun. Again, you're driving a different direction than going towards Summit County. My brother just moved to Fort Collins, so I'm counting on him to find me something in that area. I don't know what there is. I'm eager to try Hermit Park. I've seen people driving that direction with fat bikes, so I would assume that is rideable and gets, I would assume, a lot of traffic being right outside of Estes Park.
Troy Mandery rode it, I think last week, and said it was great.
Excellent.
He said it was actually not terribly crowded and it was pretty well packed. So
yeah, you've mentioned Brainerd Lake. You've mentioned things being crowded. We tend to ride at night during the week because, I mean, in the summer we ride at night. So Peaceful Valley, Brainerd Lake, none of those are crowded at night. And it's always fun to run into some other random person with headlamps in the middle of the night. Somebody on the chat pointed out, yes, county trails are closed at night, so we're not advocating that. You can't go to Mud Lake at night, but city trails, you can definitely ride at night with your lights. Somebody asked about
Jeffco.
Yeah, Jeffco. maybe somebody else can chime in on Jeffco trails.
So I've ridden Apex a couple times on a fat bike. Again, it's a lot like going to ride Batasso or something, where if it's a good day and the snow's great, and other people have been out to snowshoe it in, it's fun. But it goes south really fast because there's not a lot of tree cover, so it tends to melt out pretty well. It is fun though, because like, it's so rocky, and then suddenly it's not rocky because it's covered in snow. So definitely worth doing. Like the Centennial Cone, most of it's closed in the winter, or not most of it, a good portion of it is. So if you want to go out and ride there, just think about what your route might be, because you're going to run into the elk closure.
So
Does anybody?
Jeffco,
Oops, go ahead, Wendy.
sorry.
Jeffco does have a ton of riding too, like Staunton State Park, they do grooming, Myers Ranch, Flying J, Three Sisters, Evergreen Mountain. The higher up you go towards Conover and Evergreen, the better the conditions are going to be.
Three Sisters can be really fun. It's super zippy, fast downhills. And Staunton has like go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, keep going up, 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 and then you come down and it's like light speed. It's so fast. So it's a lot of fun.
We should
And
cover
Buff Creek too.
Oops, go ahead. Sorry, Buff Creek.
I was gonna say Buff Creek can be really fun too. It's usually mixed conditions. It's like some dirt, some slush, whatever, but it's lots of fun. And if there's ever a trail to ride a fat bike on in the summer, that's it, because it's so loose and sandy, and the fat bikes do well on it. So
we've
sorry,
ridden.
what were you gonna say, Rebecca?
Oh, no, that's no worries. We've ridden in Leadville. They have groomed trails, the Colorado CMC trails, Colorado Mountain College. I think they've got a bunch of different trail systems, because we know we've had fun. You remembered it being sort of flat, but I know
It's been a long time.
There was definitely some climbing and super twisties. I just couldn't find the video of it.
Yeah.
And
Breckenridge is a great place too.
yeah, all the ski areas.
Like the Breckenridge, of all the places I've been, they have the most extensive and easily accessible fat biking for any ski resort town. Crested Butte is a mess. At least it was the last couple of times I've been there. Their cross-country ski facilities have been closed to mountain bikes largely. They have a lot of old guard cross-country skiers, and I think it just doesn't really appeal to them. So there's not a lot of options. Where Steamboat, I thought, was a lot of fun too. Both of the cross-country ski areas there allow fat biking in some combination, and it was a lot of fun.
There's also Forest Service trails in Steamboat. And then back to Leadville, Tennessee Pass trails, Tennessee Pass Cookhouse, that's open to fat bikes and to dogs.
Yeah. One thing I would also add, not to just totally poo-poo on Crested Butte, but I did do night rides on the resort there. And you can shuttle partway up the mountain. You can self-shuttle partway up the mountain and then go down. And if you want to try a hair-raising experience, just try riding down a blue ski slope on a fat bike. I mean, seriously, you can go 40, 50 miles an hour, which is not advised.
We've ridden a little bit in Salida and BV. So that's kind of back to the Jeep roads question. It really just comes down to, is there enough traffic, whether it's foot traffic, snowshoe traffic, or snowmobile traffic? And BV, Salida, definitely there's some overlap with snowmobile traffic. So, and Leadville would be the same thing. You just, as long as you don't mind sharing a trail with motors.
Yeah, and I will say, I think we've had quite a few people ask, like, can you put this on the list or something? And so Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance on bouldermountainbike.org has an entire fat biking section. So, and hopefully we can include a link to that. I'm hoping Wendy can just put that into the chat here if she hasn't already.
Yep.
And so that gives a lot of the stuff that sort of are in our local area as a description. Oh, look, she just put it in again. It's so wonderful. So I thought I loathe really long meetings, but I don't want to let questions go unanswered. I know some people asked about how to like kit out your bike or dress appropriately. and I wanted to know if there's still questions out there about that we could answer. Certainly, I think
Actually,
sorry,
can
go ahead.
One more.
We've got one that's kind of a like its own question, and then I think we could go to bikes and gear. So Josh is worried about his knees and
Q factor.
and crashes and impact on knees. I mean, no crash is a good crash, but
Right.
I don't feel like it's any worse than regular mountain biking, or it's certainly no worse than running.
Yeah, everything is pretty low impact because of the depth of the snow. You're talking 3 to 5 feet of snow. Yeah, you're going to go up to your thigh, but it's not that big a deal. The one thing that people talk about is Q factor. The bottom bracket on a fat bike is considerably wider, so your legs are further apart. And if that's a problem for you, I've never actually felt that. I know people talk about it, and it's never been an issue for me. So I can't really reply.
Actually, biking and downhill skiing are the only two things that I can still do without pain.
Then you should keep doing it.
Perfect.
I plan to, but this is making me want to expand the biking.
You can, you really can.
I think the one thing I'd say that it definitely, as you're riding, there's a bit of like right now it's early season, and I think early season's heaps of fun, but there's lots of rocks just under the surface. If you wait for a few more good snows, we'll get to that point where you can pretty much fall as long as you're not landing on a tree. You're going to be in pretty good shape. And I showed in all those videos, like everyone falls, and everyone usually ends up just laughing and rolling around instead of like clutching their body parts and asking to go to the hospital. I mean, I'm not saying it never happens, but it's just so much rarer. So as in terms of injuries, I would take it easy as you're learning, but I find this to be my fun place where I can go and goof around and be silly a lot more. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. That's useful. It's helpful.
So Deb wants. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, please.
Deb wants to know about clothing, sweating, temperature, or she's commenting on it. So maybe we should jump to what to wear.
Yeah.
And then back to the bikes and the head tube angle and all that silliness that Marcus wanted to discuss.
Marcus loves that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd love to hear what everyone else's thoughts are, but as I said earlier, I'm a really bad cross-country skier, and so I got cross-country ski clothing to try it out, and I feel like they translate pretty well to fat biking, in that it's clothes that's designed to give you some protection from wind, some protection from cold, but mostly you're going to be sweating like crazy. And so you're trying to get that sweat out. That being said, whenever I ride a bike in the winter, I have like a nice down jacket in my pack 100% of the time, because you will be waiting for friends, you will be drinking a beer, you will be standing in the parking lot, whatever, and you will get a chill, and it's really hard to knock a chill once you get it. I can kind of walk you through. I have 2 different sets of biking attire that I wear for fat biking, if that's of interest, but also maybe Rebecca and other people can chime in as well.
I'm really basic. So let's start with me, because I'm super basic. I wear bike shorts and then some cheap ass fleece pants from Athleta, gaiters, a wool jersey thing, and then the vest I'm wearing. And then when we start from the parking lot, I put on my down puffy and I put on my lobster mitt gloves. And yes, somebody asked about pogies. I totally have pogies. If I'm really lucky, after a half an hour, here's my fancy gloves.
Trigger fingers, not lobsters.
Trigger fingers, yes. After half an hour, my hands have defrosted, but the hands and the feet, you'll be totally sweating from your forehead and your hands will still be frozen. So pogies, gloves. When you're lucky, you can take off the big gloves and switch to something lighter.
You have to be ready to stop. Stuff is going to happen that you're going to have to stop. And when you stop, you have to have full winter gear. So I've always got the extra head cover. I've always got the down puffy. I've always got the big mitts, right? So that's in the pack. That only weighs a pound or two, and it's not that big a deal. But you always have to be prepared to stop. When you're riding hard. You're sweating, you're hot, you're moving, you're going. But you have to be able to yank that stuff out, put it on, because it's 5-10 degrees outside. Now, pogies. Pogies are the big monster mitts that go, bar mitts that go on the outside of your handlebars. I've heard discussions from a lot of different people saying, oh, if I fall down, I might blow my shoulder out. I guess that's a possibility, but everybody I know wears them because I can wear regular summer mountain bike gloves as long as my hands are in my bar bits, right? And it really makes a huge difference to fat biking.
So this is a pogie here. It's not on my bike, but the handlebar would go in here and you stick your hand in the top so you can grab all your grip and whatever right through there, and you can wear lighter weight gloves. They make a huge difference. They really, really do. So, and they're not that expensive. A set of pogies is like 50, 60 bucks. And you can get them at your local bike shop through an order. Some of them actually might have them in stock. And you know, the one thing that I've not ever experienced like I can't get my arm out. I blew my rotator cuff or something. It can be, especially if you're jumping on a bike, sometimes it's, you've got gloves on. If you got too big of gloves on, it's hard to feel your way around shifters and stuff because you can't see it. But the nice thing is if you're not wearing that big of gloves because you've got the pogies on, you don't have that dexterity problem. So it's kind of good to think if you're going to do this, don't wear the heaviest gloves. I've got really bad circulation. And I wimped out. And so I don't use these anymore on my bike. Well, you can't see it.
You can see the glass of wine.
They make they make much more insulated ones.
No, he's
so I have grips that are heated. So my grips will go to 130 degrees and run for 4 hours at that temperature. And that's what I do to keep my hands warm now, because I've just gotten to a point where even with these, I'll start to get my hands being cold if I'm on like a 5-degree ride. So there are options. I think hands and feet tend to be the hardest thing to keep warm. I think this is what I use. These are Keen winter insulated boots. And they have a really big toe box. So I have a lot of room for my feet to wiggle around in there. And that gives a little bit better circulation for blood. It also means I can put toe warmers in there, which I use religiously. So those are the parts of me that get cold. Now, for the parts of me that get hot, a lot of the time when I ride, I just have one of these old school wool jerseys. And I wear a base layer under that, just a short sleeve base layer, and this only. And like 10 degrees. And there are times when I'm riding and there's a layer of ice on the outside of this from my sweat that is condensed on the outside of it and frozen, but I'm fine. And that's because it breathes so well. And that's something I like. This is my main, if it's cold, as long as it's not really windy, I'm going to be wearing this. If it's a windier day, I have this soft shell layer that's super, super light, just basically a stretchy windbreak. And I'll use this stretchy windbreak as my outer layer. I might use this underneath or just a lightweight long sleeve wool underneath it. And that's it. And then when I stop, I throw on my down jacket. Like first thing I do, oh, wow, we're stopping for a minute. Pull out that down jacket. I can get that jacket on in like 15 seconds flat because I don't want any of that, like getting the chill going. This is why COVID, the national sport for COVID should be fat biking, is because I wear a balaclava all the time and I just pull it down if I'm going uphill and no one's around. But you're going to want to be able to pull it over your mouth. This is the time I always want to be masked up because my nose will get really cold. Another thing I do, even if I'm riding at night, I'm always wearing glasses.
Yep.
Because if it's really cold, you will start crying from the cold and then the tears will freeze. Especially when you're going downhill, you're just tearing up and you're like, I can't see. So it's really good to have glasses. Your glasses might start to fog up, and there's anti-fog you can buy from ski shops. The stuff I use is called cat crap. I didn't name it, that's what it's called. And it works pretty well to keep your glasses from fogging up. As far as pants, it's kind of hard. I should model these, but these are from Club Ride. These are called, I think, Fat Jack. They are fat biking specific pants. They're very lightweight, soft shell. They have vents on the side that breathe. And if I'm really cold, I can wear thermals underneath them. Apropos of what someone else was saying about getting hurt, if the conditions are like they are now, I wear knee pads underneath my pants. It keeps my knees warmer, and it means that I can, if like a lot of time you're gonna kneel to like work on a bike or get your snack out of your pack, and my knees don't get cold because I've got pads on. The only thing about pads is that some pads get really stiff when it's cold. So you want to kind of avoid those unless you want to just have knee pads that are permanently stuck in one shape and they don't flex when you bend.
You could use your old Telly knee pads. That's from right. Those of you who may have been skiers in the old days.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What other questions about clothes?
Oh, David wants to show his saw. We're not at the saw stage yet.
We're not at the saw stage yet. Okay.
Gators. Go ahead. Gators. Yes, gators. Get some gators.
You got to have your gators. Right. If you don't know what gators are, they just go around your boot, they go around your ankle, and they keep the snow out, but they also keep your feet warmer. So gators.
Somebody was asking about goggles, JP, who we would like to give a shout out to JP. So David and I were skiing the sourdough, and JP passed us going uphill on his fat bike. And when he caught up to us, he passed us on the downhill, and we're like, the hell with skis. Apparently we're using the wrong tool. So JP, thank you. But he says he uses goggles for, it hasn't worked for me, but that's just me. I'm a hothead.
He does say downhill mountain bike or moto goggles, so a little more specific, sport specific stuff. They get a little bit of airflow. Yeah, goggles, you're really working hard. 90% of the time, you're really working hard, and you'll fog them up. So the glasses that Kevin showed, I've just got some cheapo safety glasses. We ride a lot at night, so clear lenses, no tint, no orange, no yellow, no blue, just straight up clear lenses. Safety goggles or safety glasses are fine.
Yeah. One thing I'd kind of add to the thing about just like a general philosophy of clothing is that like I also tend to pack a few spare things, both in case of emergency, and also sometimes I just sweat through them. So actually I'll pack a spare pair of gloves. Like if you lose a glove and you're one glove down and an hour out on a ride, you're in trouble. Like that could be frostbite. And in fact, I've seen people get frostnip from, hiking or whatever without gloves. So just having a spare set's good. And because we tend to sweat a lot, it's just really good to have something that would be nice and dry. Let's see. There's a question here about emergency bike maintenance. Hiking out a 35-pound bike sounds less than the best. It is less than the best. I can confer.
At the beginning, somebody asked about tubeless and carrying. If you ride tubeless, do you carry a tube? So yeah, let's cover it. What's in your pack? A lot of shit.
What's in my pack? Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a really fun experience in a really cool remote place that could turn into life and death. Like that's a realistic thing. I don't want to overplay the risk. Like this is a lot of fun. And especially if you're riding during the day, there's going to probably be other people to be around. But if you're stuck out at night, you're in trouble. And so it's good to be prepared. I do carry a spare tube because I run tubeless. I know some people don't. If you can walk out the whole distance that you've ridden and you are prepared to do that, like, okay. I've also had to change a tube in like 8-degree weather, and that's miserable. But it is doable. So I think like packing a spare tube is not a dumb idea, especially if you're with a group and you're like, okay, we're gonna try and save a pound, so someone's not gonna carry a tube. I also carry with me, and everyone I know carries some sort of emergency space blanket or something, just as a hey, someone broke a leg and they can't get out and we can't get them out, at least we have something to keep them from hopefully turning into hypothermia. And there, I mean, this is like $10 and less than a quarter of a pound. So no reason not to carry one. I'm a big fan of the toe warmers. So I usually have a spare set of toe warmers in my pack. What else do I keep with me? Well, one thing we've already seen in use, I keep a saw with me. So
the big Silky.
It's a really, yeah, the Silky Big Boy is like the go-to fat biker saw of choice. You're going to encounter down trees if you're out riding, and you can get around them. It's not like that's the end of the ride for you, but I try to be a good Samaritan
to get rid of it.
Yeah, and you know, and it's also one of those things where you're like, my feet are getting a little cold because they've been stuck on the pedals and I haven't been doing anything. I'm just going to saw for 10 minutes and then you're like really warm. Other things, I carry that tire pressure gauge with me at least for a good portion of the year until I really feel like I've got my tire pressure dialed in. It's helpful for me. I don't carry a spare like shifter cable or anything like that. I think at that point I would just be like, yeah, I'll walk out. I probably should, but you know, there's enough other stuff. I carry a warm hat because my helmet will get really sweaty. And if I was in I got to be there for a long time situation, it's nice for me just to have this, and it's such a small, compactable little thing to throw in there. It's great to have. And, you know, they say, what is it? You know, 80% of the heat goes out of your head. In my case, with no hair, even more. So, so I like to have a warm head.
Apparently Kevin has a great pump recommendation, according to Wendy.
Oh, well, I mean, I think there's several different good pumps out there. I think there's a new hot one that I'm not even aware of. Yeah, I think the one I've had great luck with has actually been Specialized. And this one has a small hose, which is nice because it keeps your tubeless valve from getting knocked loose. And this is an extra large volume designed for fat bikes. So when you're pumping, it only takes about 100 pumps to pump it up instead of 400 if you're starting from a flat. And it's, you know, it's also pretty small, so it fits in your pump and is fine. I don't know, Wendy, you might have, I think there's some new one by One Up that everyone's talking about that might be really good.
I have the Crank Brothers Click pump, like,
yeah,
kind of like the first version they came out with. Looks like they've updated it a little bit, but I love it. I carry that pump with me for mountain biking and fat biking, and it's high volume, and the magnetic the magnetic flexible hose on it makes it so much easier to pump stuff up. It's super nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that might be good is if you're like, hey, I'm kind of concerned about this, is like, go to your garage, put on some gloves that are kind of dexterity limiting, and start trying to do all the stuff you're going to do. And you can figure out pretty fast, like, does this pump work? Is this and one thing I will another thing I always keep in my pack, I always keep a spare valve core, because sometimes you go to let air out of your tire and the whole valve core just shoots out and into the woods. And then you lose all the air out of your tire. And if you don't have a valve core, you're dead in the water. So I keep a spare valve core in my pack.
Good tip. We didn't know that.
I've got them.
Yeah.
I've got stock of them.
I see he's like, I'm gonna go put one in my pack now.
Yeah, exactly. So Eric had a question about, you're carrying all this shit, how far are you riding with it? And Wendy had a great answer, which goes to the fat biking is a little slow, so you shouldn't judge yourself or your friend on only doing 5 miles in
3 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. But really, I mean, it's just, you got to recalibrate your expectation of how many miles you're going to do. And
if it's packed and flat on groomer trails, sure, you can go knock out a 20. But really, if we're up at Beaver Res and we're climbing, 500 feet in snow, it goes a lot slower.
And then back to what size pack? Let's just finish answering Eric's question. I've got a, I don't know, 18, 20 liter Osprey pack.
18 or 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's a 20.
Yep.
Really, we do try to maximize on weight, right? So we talk about carrying a lot of stuff, but the weight matters. You'll start to break down into the snow. So there's a big balance there. And Sometimes I'll leave the tube at home. Sometimes I won't carry the sauce. Sometimes I won't carry the pressure gauge, because really weight matters, and you kind of watch it a little bit more carefully. In the summer, I'll, whatever. I've just got my pack. My pack is my pack, whatever. Depending on how cold it is, etc.
Or how many people are on your trip. Kevin mentioned that.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need 4
Yeah,
tubes.
you can
hopefully.
definitely, you can divvy stuff a bit.
Yep.
I guess, so I certainly, we have a lot of other things we could cover. One thing I forgot to mention that I think is kind of valuable is a lot of times normal camelbacks will freeze, like the tube will freeze. And I think there's a lot of ways that people have found ways to get past it. There are camelbacks where
Stick
the
it
tube
in your
is insulated.
cleavage.
I stick it in my cleavage all the time. Yeah, so the tube will be insulated or inside the strap of the pack, and that can be helpful. I actually use an insulated water bottle in an insulated water bottle holder that's attached to my handlebars. And I run the hottest tap water I can before I leave, and then close that thing up and then keep it nice and warm until I get to the trail so that I can keep it from freezing.
I see a lot of hoses all of a sudden. People
Yeah.
are waggling their hoses.
So right, you've got the insulated hoses. They have the top on them. Put the top on it. That really keeps the top from freezing. And then when you're done drinking, you got to let it drain out and shove it back down into the pack so that there's nothing exposed.
Yeah. I guess I have a few other, like, I think we're running a little bit longer than I thought we were going to, but there's lots of questions. I guess I can give you a couple of tips about things that I've learned about just sort of general errata before we can talk a bit about bikes.
Okay.
One thing I've learned, this is my staple year round, which is half of a yoga mat for getting changed when you're done. When you want to take off your snow boots or whatever, it's even more valuable in the winter because you're not standing on snow. These things here have been a godsend. These are called muck off, and they are disc rotor protectors. So you put this on the inside by your wheel, and you put this on the outside of the rotor. And when you're driving on the road, you get all this road muck that flies up and hits your rotors and just gums them the hell up. These things are made by a company called Muck Off, I think, and they're like $25 for a set of 2. They're a little twitchy, but I found them so helpful for going on road trips where you're like, you get there and your whole bike is just covered with road grime and your disc brakes just sound horrible and don't work for a half an hour. So I recommend those. They're not I could see a way to do them better, but I'm not going to make them myself. So, hey, for the price of them, it's great. And yeah, I think that's all my extra little toys other than to talk about bikes. Anyone else have any cool little tips? All right.
The fatter the tire, the better.
Yeah. So fatter the tire. Sorry, what?
Somebody was saying something.
How do you get those muck off calipers?
How do you get them off?
Are they just Velcro?
Yeah, they're just Velcro. Here, let me see.
How do you get them? How do you get them under the caliper?
Oh, there's a split. Here, let me see if I can set this up for your viewing pleasure. So you just wrap it around the back side like that, and then the Velcro comes on the other side, like this.
Oh. So it covers over the caliper and everything. Got it.
It covers the caliper, the rotor, everything. Sorry, it's silhouetted. It's sort of like in romantic lighting.
Or you could use a shower cap, according to Dave Walsh. I like that. You can get a 100 pack of shower caps from Amazon.
For $2.
Wow, that makes me look like a big spender. So yeah, in terms of bikes, I think we covered some of the general stuff, like if you can get a 4.5 or a 4.8, it's really helpful in terms of tire size. A dropper post, I got in this wonderful discussion of people who are fighting last week. Is it more important to have good tires or a dropper post on a fat bike? And it got it got close to blows. I think a dropper post is more important on a fat bike for me than it is on a regular mountain bike, because I use it for all the things I use it a normal mountain bike, where you want to make sure that the bike is separated from your body when you're going downhill or doing a jump or something like that. But the reality is, if you're stopped and you want to get on the bike and pedal, you need your weight on that back wheel, and you're going to sink in 4 or 5 inches with your foot because you're standing on snow. Getting your butt on top of the saddle when you're already sinking in is almost impossible unless you can drop the saddle a lot. And you're going to be getting your feet off of your pedals really a lot of the time. So having that ability to lower the height so that it's not such a big step down into the snow is really, really helpful. And there are a lot of more affordable dropper posts. Wendy and Jeremy turned me on to the P&W droppers that they don't have air, they have a spring in them. So they're just a lot more reliable in cold weather.
They're starting to
dropper.
move. Most of them have an air spring now. But the older models have coils. I have a coil P&W on my fat bike, but I think most of their new ones, they're moving to air springs in them.
For winter and on the fat bike, I'm really big on the gravity dropper. It's just a spring. It'll smack you in the ass if you're not careful. There's nothing high tech about it, but it's like the low tech, low maintenance, gonna work every time kind of dropper, and it's cheap as shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really important. I think a lot of fat bikes, when they first started making them, they put mechanical brakes on them, in part just because they're reliable and they're cheap. Most of the people I know now are looking for the most powerful hydraulic brakes they can get. I use my brakes as a method of steering by locking up my rear or front wheel or both. It really allows me to take a turn tighter. So I'm running Shimano Saints now. So I'm running downhill brakes on my fat bike. I think I'm probably more extreme than most people. But almost everyone I know now is running hydraulic brakes.
If you want to run mechanicals, the TRP spikes are amazing. That's what I run on mine. They actuate the pads from both sides, just like a hydraulic brake does. And the spikes even come with like a cover over the top of them, specifically to keep snow out of getting in there for fat biking.
That's great to know.
And they're super strong.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Is there anything else people have to throw into this? I mean, I can delve into the nuance of things in great depth because I'm a super bike nerd.
So what kind of lubrication do you use? We use squirt wax lube.
Yep.
But really for fat bike, I put it on once a year. It just doesn't get dirty. You don't wash it off. It doesn't go anywhere. You don't really have to worry about it as much.
I use the winter squirt. I've got like 4 bottles of the low temperature winter squirt, and I lube my chain because I'm on 1x12. They say you need to lube it a lot. So I lube my chain, at least every other ride, but it's so dry anyways that it's not really a big deal. I think that like a lot of the wet lubes are fine. They just tend to be really soggy when you're just not going to encounter a lot of dirt or anything on the trail in the winter.
So one of the concepts we always hit on etiquette, and we've talked about the old-timer skiers, but one of the things that's different about fat biking than mountain biking is that you are out there to enjoy the nature, right? We are out there to appreciate where we are and what we see, the quiet. Sometimes we'll come to a place and just stop and look out at the nature because it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous out there, and just the peace and the tranquility out there it's worth being respected. And yeah, so that is part of the etiquette. Is fat biking is different in some respects than mountain biking. It's not like the super downhill aggro sport. Sometimes you're out there like you were on cross country skis, soaking up the backcountry.
Yeah, and I think kind of adding to that, like just in general, most people who are out in these places, they're kind of in awe of nature. And don't get me wrong, like I've set my fastest times by far on South St. Vrain Trail in the winter. Like I've burned that place down going really fast on that trail. But at the same time, I think that like the sharing the mutual experience with people who are snowshoeing or skiing or whatever and stopping and just saying like, isn't this an amazing day? There's an amazing feeling of humanity I get from that. And I think that's what most people are looking for, is that connection with nature, the shared experience in nature out there that maybe is a bit different from our others, like more summer experiences.
Scrolling back and looking at chat
Yeah.
messages. I don't think we've missed a whole lot. There's a couple here and there that
What to do about drifts?
if it's drifty, nobody cares about it anyway.
I mean, well, everybody's going to suffer through the drifts.
Someone asked if there's going to be group fat bike rides. At least what
I
I've
can
heard
answer
so
that.
far. Oh, yeah, go Wendy, go.
Yeah, so we do have a ride guide who's interested in leading those again. We can't start that until Boulder County Public Health drops the COVID level from deep red or whatever it is now. Right now, they don't recommend recreating with people outside your household. So when that COVID level drops, look for our fat bike rides to start up again.
I'm more than happy to address that.
We got a couple folks saying goodbye and thank you. So I think it's awesome for the folks who were able to stick around and ask all the questions. Anything else?
Yeah, if you still want to hear, if you still want to hear either my hot toddy recipe or the finer nuances of head tube angles, I'm happy to talk about that. But we could also, if no one else wants to talk about that, we can just end this.
Great to see so much interest.
Yeah, and hope I see you out on the trails, guys. Just holler when you see us.
We won't recognize each other with all the gear, but just be friendly and say hi.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. This was awesome.
Nice to see you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys
Yeah.
too.
Seeing you.
We're gonna see you this year. You're coming out on Wednesday.
Yeah, let me know when you guys are riding.
Oh, you know
Okay.
it.
I'll try to make it out.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Rebecca, Dave. Thanks.
See you, John.
Nice to see you.
Is this going to
Awesome,
be me and
guys.
Kevin sitting talking about head tube angles and bottom brackets then?
Yeah, I knew you'd be up for that.
I mean, I will say, like, I have a very slack head tube angle, and it is very nice. My bike I had built with a 67-degree head tube angle, and it's
nice.
it's a pretty and it's a 77-degree seat tube angle, so it's kind of a game changer if you want to ride down sourdough trail really fast.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna buy that Pole Taiga fat bike frame when they come back in stock sometime next year.
Yeah, I saw that. I said late 2021.
Yeah.
That's the world
I almost bought one this year, but I had other stuff that I had to buy.
Yeah, I had my bike built by Zinn, so, and they were totally like, "What are you talking about, you crazy guy?" But then when they finished, I guess they've started. They're running into production now, where they're reproducing based off of the geometry that they built for me.
Nice.
So
yeah,
that's where all the bikes are going. I mean, 67 with a what'd you say? Seat tube 77? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super. That's a crazy steep seat tube angle.
I mean, it's basically the same as my Ibis Ripmo, and I was like, "Can you just build the same bike for me, but for the snow?"
It's that geometry is so awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it just, like, what it does for me is it allows me to climb really well because I can just stay seated and keep my weight on that rear wheel. So,
and you got all that confidence of that front end. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So how many people did we get up to? I can't see. Where are we now?
I think we still have 12, but I mean, half of them I think are people
I think the highest number I saw was 39.
Really? I saw 50.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I wasn't like paying too much attention to it.
Yeah, you were in the mid to high 50s for sure at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people were like, you know what? I'll just turn on Netflix now. But I mean, I know there's some silent people out there. If there's anything else you've got left, I think we'll give it another minute or so. Oh, hi, I got to post the toddy recipe. I can, you know what I'll do is I'll put that as a secret BMA treat on their Fat Bike page. So you can go to Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance's Fat Bike page, and I'll get the recipe up there.
What?
No. What did you say?
That does not go with my Fat Bike page.
I don't know why not. I think it's a critical thing to put on there. Just like
we're all carrying them anyway.
This is important information, Wendy. We need to let the people know.
What are we letting them know about?
Hot toddies and flasks. I mean, really, everybody wears a flask, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been riding with one of those hydro flasks, the insulated ones with a hot toddy in it for like 6 or 7 years. And in the before times when you could say, would you like to drink from my beverage container? They were very popular.
Yes, but
yeah, I mean,
alcohol cures the COVID.
Yeah, you can't get sick from drinking from my container because that's 80 proof.
I'd be happy to show your recipe when I share the recording of this.
Okay, so the recipe is pretty straightforward. It's 1 part whiskey, so like 1 shot whiskey, 1 tablespoon honey, 1 stick of cinnamon, partially shaved, but the whole stick thrown in, and then a half of a lemon zest. So zest half a lemon is 1 serving. And so when I'll go out, and normally I'll make like a triple or a quadruple. So I'll put in like 3 shots or 4 shots of whiskey and 4 tablespoons of honey. And it's a really straightforward recipe, but it's just really good. Look at that. It's like Wendy's my like auto translator. She just writes it down. Yeah, Eric, please come on a ride with me. I'm looking for people to ride with, especially at night. And that's another thing we should have talked more about. I like riding at night better than riding in the day.
Yeah, lights. We didn't talk about lights at all and riding at night because, you know, I work.
Yeah.
We go after work on Wednesdays.
So I have really bad vision. My contrast vision is horrible. And because the snow is so reflective when I ride with lights, I actually see better than during the day, especially if you're going in and out of trees. My eyes just can't adjust. But at night, I see great. So yeah, and definitely, I think just like regular mountain biking, my light system is I have one on the noggin and one on the bar.
Yeah.
The one on the helmet gives me a ability to look around the corner. The one on the bar gives me a different light angle, so I don't see too much shadow.
Somebody was asking which kind other than bright ones. I think we have a.
Oh God, John Perry, we've still got some magic shine lights from you, baby.
Awesome. Nice.
And then maybe Night Rider.
We used to order those by the case.
Yeah, I guess a Night Rider.
Yeah, JP, you got us started on this silliness.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have ever thought that. That's right.
I went back and found the photos. I found a picture of a Specialized Fat Boy that I demoed in 2015.
Nice.
And then we got ourselves fat bikes for Christmas that same year.
Hey, one more thing I forgot to mention that was asked to is that there's actually, we have a local guiding service that does do fat bike guiding in the winter called Pedal. And so if you're looking to give this a shot, that might be a good place to start off in terms of someone being able to guide you through it. So if you look for Pedal in Boulder, they do guiding in the winter.
Is that, Wendy, is that something we meaning you could put on social media to advertise? Because not everybody would be on this call that might be interested in trying it on a one-time basis.
Yeah, sure. Pedal's one of our business partners, and they've been posting. BMA can share that too.
Cool.
Hey, buddy. Hey, boy.
Well, are there any other questions? Should we call this and I can eat a second slice?